So Ron, what are some best practices that states can adopt, particularly state legislators, in disaster management and mitigation?
Thanks, Claire, and thanks for having me. Really, some of the things that we think are that states can look at are taking time to work on issues before a disaster hits. Obviously, post-claims mediation programs, a program where a consumer can try to resolve a dispute with their insurance company, if there is one, amicably and outside the court process is one we really think we ought to take a focus on. Clear and concise insurance summaries, letting the consumer know in advance what coverage they have, knowing if they might need more coverage in advance of a storm. What we'd like is for us to have that discussion before disaster hits, not after they filed a claim and realized that they didn't have the coverage that they thought they had. Reasonable reporting requirements during the disaster is something we'd like to work with states on. Knowing what we need to, information we need to get to the regulator and policymakers in advance so that we can do that and we're ready to do that, but that our main focus is on resolving those claims, which is really what the insured is paid us for, is to be there in the event disaster hits. And those are some of the issues that we really think are important for us to all talk about in advance of the next disaster.
Great. And from your perspective, how can state legislators best help their constituents?
Well, and going maybe back to some of the best practices, mitigation is an issue that we think is hugely important. State legislators looking at programs that they can initiate to incentivize their constituents to strengthen their homes, to mitigate against disaster, tax credits in order to strengthen their home, grants for those that are perhaps of low income, and allow them to strengthen the homes that they live in as well. Of course, our member companies give discounts to homeowners who've installed an alarm or different safety devices. And us working with legislators to spread the word about those programs so that folks are doing these things in advance and lessening the risk and lessening the damage once disaster hits would be important.
Great. And what are some of the other agencies, or who can state legislators partner or cooperate with to mitigate an emergency or disaster?
Well, on the mitigation on the front end, there are many organizations, obviously, working with the building community. Those are going to be policy issues and tough discussions at the legislative level, but those are discussions we think that the folks need to have. There are groups like the Institute for Home and Business Safety and the Federal Alliance for Safe Homes. Their sole focus is on strengthening buildings and homes and mitigation, and we would urge legislators to get involved with those organizations, local chapters, and learn what they can do about adopting statewide building codes and not just adopting the code, but enforcing it. And that's not an instant solution, but fairly quickly, if those codes are enforced and as the housing stock is brought to those standards, then the results of that disaster are going to be less severe if those conversations and that work has been done on the front end.
Great. Thank you so much, Ron, for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.